Spyro the Dragon, admittedly a series I am not that familiar with, but it is a platforming game developed by Insomniac Games, so I have to say I am a bit intrigued by it. I played it a bit when I was younger, but not too much, just a bit of the first game, and I watched somebody play the third game. But I always thought they were interesting enough. I mean, it's just a collectathon game, and collectathon things were kind of the thing back then. I do have the remasters on Steam, but I've never went out of my way to actually play it. I got it free through Humble Bundle, so maybe I ought to do that after this video. On the other hand though, Spyro Enter the Dragonfly. To talk about Spyro Enter the Dragon, first we kinda have to talk about the development of the first game. Spyro the Dragon was the second game ever developed by Insomniac Games. You know, little known studio only for making such minor games that didn't sell very well, like Spider-Man on the PlayStation 4 and Miles Morales on the PlayStation 5. Like, nobody bought those games, like nobody knows what Spider-Man is. The first game they ever made, Disruptor, was a commercial failure. It came out in December 1996, and although it failed, it was positive critically received, and Universal Interactive Studios saw encouragement in that and wanted the development team to make another game. So it was simple. The idea of the first game was to be about a dragon, introduced by Insomniac artist Greg Stitt. It's pretty simple how it came about. He was like, I love dragons, here's a drawing, and that's pretty much how it came to be. Of course, it didn't initially start out as Spyro or anything. In fact, Spyro was originally supposed to take a much more darker and more realistic tone. Apparently, the original version of Spyro took a lot more inspiration from the film known as Dragonheart. Now, whatever that may look like, we may never know, but what we do know is that the reason that he became Spyro in the first place is because Universal Studios actually wanted something with a lot more mass-market appeal to compete with the N64. According to programmer Peter Hastings, the dragon character was originally going to be named Pete, but they were a bit concerned with Disney and the film Pete's Dragon, so they scrapped that name, and instead they were like, how about we name him Pyro, which they considered too mature. So, what else could we do? Well, how about we add an S to it? That's how we got Spyro. Now, the lesson here, kiddos, is, well, if something's just a little too mature, just add an S to it, and then it's fine. And just as a bit of a bonus fact, Insomniac Games was right across the studio way from Naughty Dog. So, when Naughty Dog was working on Crash Bandicoot and they were working on Spyro, the two companies would go back and forth and not only help each other work on the games, but also play each other's builds. This is how Spyro got a demo of Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped, and vice versa. Spyro the Dragon was first unveiled at the 1998 E3 convention in Atlanta, Georgia.
E3 is the year's biggest video game trade show. This year, over 140 new PlayStation games went on display in Atlanta. We know you'd like to play these games yourself and see which ones are hot, but you're about to meet 4 industry pros who are actually paid to do this. Here's an exclusive look at some of their personal favorites.
We're here at Sony Computer Entertainment America's booth, and my first pick is Spyro the Dragon.
This is Spyro the Dragon, developed by Insomniac Games and Universal Interactive Studios. It's a full free-roaming 3D action platform game. Some of the really cool things about this game is that it has these beautiful panoramic worlds, all 3D, with great 3D characters and animation. As Spyro the Dragon, you can flame, roll, glide, fly. So your goal in Spyro the Dragon is to go around and free all these crystal dragons.
It was then later released in North America on September 9th, 1998, and Europe in October of the same year. According to the Sony Computer Entertainment Vice President at the time, Andrew House, at a party in Las Vegas, the game, along with other upcoming fourth quarter PlayStation releases such as Crash Bandicoot Warped, A Bug's Life, and Rugrats Search for Reptar, was part of a general effort to appeal towards a wider demographic of younger audiences. So, how did the game sell? Well, according to Spyro's developers, sales were initially slow at the game's launch, but quickly began picking up following the holiday season. In the week of November 29, 1998, it was the third best-selling game in the UK behind Tomb Raider and FIFA 99. By December of 1999, the game had sold about 1 million copies in North America, and as of 2007, the title had gone on to sell a total of nearly 5 million units. So obviously people really liked the game, and that spawned 2 more sequels on the PlayStation 1. So how did we go from 3 beloved PlayStation classics to Enter the Dragonfly? Well, after 3 really good games on the PlayStation 1, all good things have to come to an end. Sometimes certain development studios don't want to work in a certain franchise anymore, or whatever it may be. In this case, Insomniac Games decided they didn't want to work on Spyro games anymore, and that involved 2 new development teams to make a Spyro game for next-generation consoles. All the information proceeding forward comes from the Enter the Dragonfly investigation at wampagem.wordpress.com. To say the least, when you're a brand new studio who's coming in to work on a game that has 3 famous games before it, you might think you have your work cut out for you, but to be honest, it's not even close to that. You have to hold up to the standards of the company that was there before you, which could be really hard to do because you may just not be as talented, or maybe the setup that you're in with the current studio just doesn't work out as well and the vision isn't as clear. To say the least, I don't envy any position of any studio that has to take over another studio's property. Some of the original scrapped concepts and ideas included the dev team thinking that Spyro needed a tone update. Thus, the first design that was delivered was Spyro grew up a bit to feel less like a kid and more like a teenager facing real adult dangers. They wanted to feel like it had more fun with whimsy, yet grown up and dangerous. The world itself reflected this, integrating steampunk visuals into the design and art. The first story treatment had a serious boss and introspective ending, which Universal felt was too heavy, so we reverted to a more traditional Spyro-styled ending in Nemesis. About a month or so into production, Universal decided they preferred a different direction and asked for a standard Spyro game design, specifically including a team-up of Nasty and Ripto. This is where Ricky became our primary creative contact at Universal. The story and design were rewritten to focus on freeing captured baby dragonflies. We did bring along much of the plans and work for the existing worlds and characters to the new 90-page design. This new design had a major enhancement delivered a few months later, making further adjustments per Universal requests and defining every detail of every feature. It was 208 pages and delivered to Universal 6 months into production. Universal's reply to that second design, though, was, "This is good, but it's just a standard Spyro game. What's special about it?" So imagine you're working on a game for several months after being told to rework it once already, and you're going exactly day to day doing everything that Universal specified you to do, and then coming back to Universal and being told, "This is just a standard Spyro game, just like we asked for. What's special about it?" It really didn't matter though, because despite whatever they wanted to do, they were contractually obligated to deliver a game design that Universal would legally sign off on and attach to the contract, regardless of whether that design was the one to actually ship. So, Joel Goodsell decided he would just go for broke and wrote a Zelda-esque RPG-like Spyro design. This design also involved a team-up of Ripto and Nasty, however with a deeper Zelda-like structure, including a hub town and surrounding open-world field with changing seasons. A final version of this design, 214 pages, was delivered and signed off on by Universal in January 2002, and they received no feedback. So okay, everything sounds great. I mean, we can take this design, rework a few things, and make a good game. So what exactly was the problem? Well, Check 6's relationship with Equinox Digital Entertainment was probably the biggest issue with development. At the beginning, the relationship between Check 6 and Equinox was great. Both companies were very excited to be working on the high-profile title and optimistic as to what could accomplish eventually both companies into a single office space in Venice, California, and were looking forward to a future of developing games together. That optimism didn't last, though. I don't remember the details of what led to each company's management distrusting each other, but it deteriorated to the point where one day I walked into the office and was told to go home because the project was dead. Everyone else had been sent home too. Instead, I insisted on putting the heads of both companies into the conference room and mediated between them all day until they agreed to continue. If I hadn't done that, the project would have been dead on that day. So the companies didn't trust each other, and Universal had a deadline. So basically, the game didn't get finished in time that Universal wanted it to be out. So it came out with bad frame rate, the game was completely unpolished, and the game released unfinished. And after the release of the game, both Equinox and Check 6 ended up shutting down. Well, the game was received very average or generally unfavorable. On GameCube and PS2 on Metacritic, it received a 48 and 56. Game Informer gave it a 4.75 out of 10. GamePro gave it a 2.5 out of 5. GameSpot gave it a 3.2 out of 10. GameSpy gave it a 2 out of 5. GameZone gave it a 7.5 out of 10 and a 7, IGN gave it a 6 out of 10, Nintendo Power gave it a 3.3 out of 5, Nintendo World Report gave it a 4 out of 10, official US PlayStation Magazine gave it a 3 out of 5, and XPlay gave it a 2 out of 5. No real sales numbers were actually given out, but the PlayStation 2 version received a Platinum Sales Award for the Entertainment and Leisure Software Publishers Association, indicating that sales of at least 300,000 units were sold in the UK. And just because the story couldn't have a happy ending, on March 28, 2007, a lawsuit was filed against Universal, Check 6, and Equinox and Sony by the parents of a child who suffered epileptic seizures after playing Enter the Dragonfly. Because of course they did. So that's Spyro Enter the Dragonfly. I mean, if you really care about Spyro that much, just buy like the Insomniac Games like remaster that was released on Steam and PlayStation and Xbox. That would be your best bet. I have it, I need to play it. I've never really sat down and played Spyro games that much because I'm not much of a collectathon game player, but you know, I respect people who are. I like the Crash Bandicoot games. Those games are kind of like collectathons, but they're also platformers at the same time. I never got the same vibe from playing Spyro. Maybe I'm completely wrong. I don't have too many memories of it, but ultimately, I remember liking the first game. I just didn't play it that much. But that concludes this week's episode of Why It Failed. If you have any suggestions for any future Why It Failed episodes, please leave your suggestion in the comments below.